Hello and welcome back to FinextraTV. I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking here at Sibos 2022 in Amsterdam. And I'm joined by Damien Dugauquier and Alain Raes of iPiD. We're chatting about cross-border payments. Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How's Sibos been? Busy?
You go first.
Yeah, busy as usual Sibos, right? I
Yes.
mean, this is my 27th one, so
Oh my goodness.
been there for a long time, and it's always very much busy. And the success is really by meeting as many participants, payments actors that you can do, right? And
Right.
trying to gather information, providing information, coming up with new ideas. That's what we're trying to do.
Right, well, let's talk about information, and we're talking about cross-border payments. Now, domestic payments, they are fast and efficient in most countries. When you look at the cross-border landscape, payments are complicated and there's a lack of customer experience. So Damien, may I put this to you? What's going on? What is the problem?
So let me first say, Debbie, that I agree with you. so when we looked at the payment space at iPiD, we saw that there are two big problems to solve. The first one is about essentially moving money faster and cheaper. The second one is about making payments simpler, easier for customers, safer, so reducing fraud risk, reducing failed payments. And when we looked at the domestic payment space, thankfully these two problems have been solved thanks to the new generation of payment systems. Payments are actually getting faster and cheaper, cross-border, a lot of initiatives in that space. Mm-hmm. But as you mentioned, when we talk about convenience, simplicity, it's not really there yet for cross-border. And what's missing is that interoperability, the connection, the bridge between the domestic overlay services, and that's exactly what we are building at iPiD.
Okay, excellent. So you talk about that bridge that is needed. So Alain, that could be some of the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
So may I ask you, how do we approach that? You've already mentioned iPiD's working on something similar, but how do we approach these challenges and how do we address those challenges?
I think Damien actually mentioned two important words here, right? He talked about interoperability, which is, by the way, a word that I think we've been talking about for the last 27 Sibos I've been participating to. So interoperability has always been at the very center of making things better for everyone, right? And then he's talking also about bridge, right? Mm-hmm. In some way, that is what we're trying to do, right? It's actually bridging these domestic overlays that Damien was talking about, right? By connecting in one side of a platform payment services and payment providers in a typical B2B space to start with, right? With data aggregators, providers in the other side, right? We can eventually, create actually this interoperability mechanism that will make the cross-border payments experience a lot better, right? So in that context, iPiD is coming first with two services, right? One that tries first actually to validate an account, right? Actually, when you pay actually abroad, cross-border, there's always a risk that actually the account you want to pay to actually is actually either wrong or doesn't exist, right? So we validate that, right? And we also, more importantly, we're trying to see whether actually the owner of the account is actually the right person and owns that account. So we make that match as well, right? So by doing so, we're preventing frauds. I mean, it's not even actually about stopping fraud, it's actually preventing the fraud as well. And in doing so, we enhance the customer's experience, right? And then there is a second service that we call Fetch, which is a little bit different in the sense that you basically using a proxy like a phone number, right, in order to send the payments, and based on that proxy, we're fetching the data from the other country, the other part, bringing it actually back at the sending side, and then you can send the payment being sure that actually we're talking about the right accounts and you're talking about the right person to send that payment. So in doing so, we're not actually processing the payment, right? We just a step that you have in the payments delivery chain, but happening really before the payments is actually being sent.
Okay, excellent. And of course, you are talking about iPiD in this space. And Damien, if I cross over to you, Alain, you've laid quite a bit of groundwork here. Damien, may I ask you, where iPiD actually stands in this cross-border payments space? What are you working on? We've spoken about some of the mechanisms, but what are you working on? And also, quite interestingly, who do you see as your competitors?
So we definitely have a quite unique position in the industry. We're actually not competing with any of the existing providers. We are providing that pre-transaction, pre-payment processing API that helps a bank, a fintech, to validate or fetch banking details. Because like Alain mentioned, prevention is better than the cure, essentially, and I think all the industry participants would agree with that. So we're not taking anything away from anybody in the payment chain. We're just making payments safer and easier for customers and helping our customers to provide a better value proposition and really make cross-border payments as easy as domestic ones.
So you're building these systems within the cross-border payment space.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I suppose, our typical let's look ahead question I pose to both of you. How do both of you see the cross-border payments industry or space changing in the near to long term? And where does iPiD stand in that?
Well, listen, I've been there for a long time, right? So, at a time where, in the early days, it was still about telex and this kind of stuff, right? So it's fair to say that if I'm sort of stepping backwards and look at, what happened 25 years ago, say, wow, I mean, there's been actually a lot of improvement being made, and Damien mentioned about that. Things have changed, right? At the same time, also, you see that international commerce, international trade has increased dramatically, right? I mean, fair to say that it is a bit of a stalling for the time being in a sort of a plateau, but still, right? I mean, this payment is there to facilitating international trade, international commerce, and making sure that things can happen faster, right? And the more ultimately technology evolves, the more digitalized people are becoming, the more you're going to have international payments, right? And what you used to pay domestically, eventually, because actually parcels can arrive very quickly, you can pay anywhere, right? So we've seen a massive surge in number of payments over the last 20 years. That surge keeps accelerating, right? I mean, all payments actors that you have more and more transactions, right? And I think what we can do in that context is really making this easier, right? The more digitalized will be people, and the easier will be the experience, the faster will be the curve of those payments, the acceleration of those payments, right? I think this is what's going to happen, right? Now, from there to say that eventually payments might become a commodity somewhere, right? I think yes, right? I mean, it's like somewhere the blood you have in your vein, right? I mean, you need to have this running because otherwise the whole economy somewhere stops, right? So I think you can say, right, we're playing a role in to make this actually better for the future.
Okay,
and if I can build on that, Debbie, I like what Alain mentioned. So the movement of money is becoming a commodity. So the participants are competing based on user experience, because that's how you actually win clients, making it easier, making it safer. And so we see a fragmentation in the payment rails business, but as well a fragmentation on the initiation points. Probably more than 50% of cross-border payments, P2P, today are initiated by non-banks. And I guess that will continue. And even on the reception side in many markets, the cross-border payments don't end up on a bank account, but they end up on a wallet, for instance. So the world is becoming more and more fragmented, and we're helping to stitch this together with a uniform data service that allows basically one single experience to be provided across those different rails and different payout options and pay-in options for the clients. That's what we're building.
So that's interesting from both of you. So you almost see it continuing to grow, but you're trying to stitch together to make it an easier process.
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Well, lovely speaking to you both. Thank you, Damien.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alain.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Debbie.
Thank you.